Well, if you're joining us today, we'd like to welcome you to our church, the Melbourne International Christian Church. Who are we? We are a bunch of group of friends that are kind of crazy, a mixed bag of everything. And we are part of a much bigger, larger movement of churches called the International Christian Church. And our movement started in LA, and there is churches in all 6 populated continents of the world. Over 11,000 different Christians involved in it. Over 130 something different churches. Yes. And we were directly part of our church in Sydney, but we moved our lives down from Sydney to Melbourne on the 27th of December, and we moved down to be able to start a church here in Melbourne. But why do that 12-hour driving journey, you ask me? Because we believe that the gospel deserves to be spread and for all people to know the truth. So if you're joining us today, we've been going through a character series in the Bible, where we look at a character in the Bible, we look to study him out, or her out, understand what we can learn from it, their mistakes, the ups and the downs. So a bit of like life. You look at your friend, they make a mistake, you go, I'm definitely not going to do that one. But today we're going to be looking at Noah. Noah's an interesting story. Because many people think the flood is fake. Many people think the flood is a mystical thing, isn't it? Did it really happen? Of course it happened. The title of today's lesson is Noah rising above the flood. Rising above the flood. What flood are you going through today? The flood of the problems in your relationship? The flood of not having much money? The flood of God, why am I single? The flood of family problems. See, Noah in his time was going through a lot as well. And today we're going to study out the story of Noah and the flood. We'll pick up in Genesis chapter 6, verse 5 to 8. So Genesis chapter 6, verse 5 to 8, it says, "The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was evil all the time. The Lord was grieved that he had made man on the earth, and his heart was filled with pain. So the Lord said, I will wipe mankind, whom I have created, from the face of the earth, man and animals, and creatures that move along the ground, and the birds of the air, for I am grieved that I've made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord." Does it sound like it's talking about Noah's time or our time today? Has the world really changed all that much? Have people stopped lying, stopped being selfish, getting drunk, being in sexual immorality, have divorce stopped? Sometimes I wish I could live back into the days. Because at least there was more integrity and morality in the world than there is today. And it was interesting, just in the news, the world hasn't really changed that much. Just in the news, on Friday, there was a Victorian driver who killed a much-loved father of 2. Because the driver was high on ice and other drugs, and now he's been jailed for 9 years. It was so sad, the driver was only 25 years old. And he was traveling at a speed of 170 kilometers per hour. He crashes into another car, a Jeep. But he was going so quick. The impact was so massive that the Jeep then crashes into the car the father of 2 was in, instantly killing the father. Could you imagine being this guy? You waking up on a Sunday morning, sitting in your car, planning your day, bothering no person. You've done nothing, and out of nowhere, a Jeep smashes into you. And just like that, your life is gone. In a letter was found out that this man that was 25, that was high on ice, had many problems in his life. But that is the world, isn't it? You can be caught into a crossfire and die today and have nothing that you've done wrong. So the only thing you can be safe about is if you die today, will you go to heaven or hell? So people of Noah's time, the man of know when the flood will come, but once it came, that was it. And it was interesting, you go through so much experience in life and you go, man, life really is short. And then one of the biggest things why sometimes I go like, when I study the Bible, people go, why? I'm like, you've got to really understand what it means to be a Christian. It's understanding that your life is so fragile. It's understanding that not wanting to be a Christian is a bit of it doesn't really make sense. I remember one time my wife and I, we're back in Sydney. We went to Max Brand, it's like a cafe. And we were literally sitting on the table there. I was sitting here, she was sitting there. Another couple came right after us. And once the couple came, the man and the woman, they sat on the table behind us. As soon as they sat, the wife got up to go inside to order. The man started shaking. And he started foaming at the mouth. He drops to the ground and he's having a seizure. And I remember the wife running back, screaming, helpless, literally contemplating, is this it? Many people rushed. They tried their best to help the man. It was great that the man actually ended up recovering and he didn't die. But I go, could you imagine being that lady? Could you imagine being that lady? It makes real that scripture that says, two will be walking, one will be taken, the other would not. And we must never forget that we were once all lost, seeking to sin in many ways, yet amazingly we have been forgiven. This needs to motivate us to live a grateful, sinless life, focused on loving others out of the gratefulness of our heart. Romans 2:4-8, it says, do you show contempt for the riches of his kindness, tolerance, patience, not realizing that God's kindness leads towards repentance? But because of your stubbornness and your unrepentant heart, you are storing up wrath against yourself for the day of God's wrath, when its righteous judgment will be revealed. God will give to each person according to what he has done. To those who by persistence in doing good seek glory, honor, and immortality, he will give eternal life. But for those who are self-seeking, who reject the truth and full of evil, there will be wrath and anger. So at the end of the day, there's only a few things that count. And it's simply to live a life that honors and pleases God. That's all that matters. Your car will go. And I just serviced my car not long ago, and I'm already hearing, I'm like, I just serviced you not long ago. My back brakes are gone. You can put values in cars, here we go. But surely my university degree will be enough. You know what's amazing? So many people spend 5 years pouring themselves into a degree, and then you get a job where your degree is meaningless. It doesn't even apply. I remember talking to a friend, I can't remember what, I think it was a consultant, like in a business job or engineering. It was engineering. He goes, yeah, you know what's interesting? Whenever people graduate from engineering and we hire them in a company, we tell them, forget everything you've learned in university. He goes, they teach them systems that are like 10 years behind. And he's like, you're behind. Forget it. We need to update you on what is new. I'm not saying university is pointless, but I'm saying you're applying yourself into something that isn't going to last. Only heaven will last. So to live a life that honors and pleases God, we need to rise above the floods of problems and rise above the floods of emotions. Point one, rise above the flood of problems. You know, we all have problems. We all have problems. And then the only person that doesn't have a problem, a dead person. That's true.
Nice.
That's literally true. The only person that doesn't have a problem is a dead person. Some people go, I don't want problems in my life. I'm tired of this problem and that problem. Do you want to die? That's all it is. Only a dead person does not have problems. So you have to get used to and master the ability to work under the pressure of problems. When it comes to problems, the only difference between a Christian and a non-Christian is simply this. God teaches us how to deal with the problems in our life. In fact, I kind of believe that Christians go through more problems than non-Christians. I kind of believe. Why? God has a sense of humor. How is he going to teach you to have faith unless he throws you into the deep end? When you're a non-Christian, you don't have to worry about that. Your life is cruising. You do what you want. Whereas a Christian, you actually live a life of denying yourself. But yet Christians are some of the best at handling difficult situations because they've been trained by God. And in Genesis chapter 9 to 22, it says, Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time. He walked with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on the earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all people. For the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood. Make rooms in it and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 450 long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Make a roof for it and finish the ark to within 18 inches of the top. Put a door in the side of the ark and make it lower and middle and upper decks. I'm going to bring flood waters on the earth to destroy or eat all life under the heavens. Every creature that has breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish, but I will establish my covenant with you. And you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of flood that is to be eaten, every kind of food that is to be eaten, and store it away as food for you and them. Noah did everything just as God commanded him. So the earth had come to a point where the Creator had had enough of what was created. So God goes, time to uncreate and start anew. It's a shame of humanity that we think that our lives are actually dependent on our own will. We have free will, don't get me wrong. But we like to think that we actually are in control of things. Were you in control of COVID-19 happening? No, you weren't. Every one of us were living our lives, and all of a sudden you're hearing rumors and news. There's a virus spreading. And all of us were locked in our homes for a year or for 2. And I can imagine being someone in Israel at this moment. You're in the middle of a war. Are you really in control of that? No, you're not. Humans really don't have as much control as we think we do. So why do problems happen? Problems happen for a simple problem. Whether you're a Christian or not, problems happen for a single problem. God is trying to get your attention. Problems allows you to see your need for God. It allows you to see where you're failing. And I was out praying this morning, I had to go, let me review my month of Jan. How was my month of Jan? I wasn't the best disciple to God I could have been. But you have to go, well, if this is happening, if that is happening, what is God trying to teach me? I think some of us, we run from problems. Some of us, we don't even want to go through the path of reflecting. And I really want to lift up my wife. She reviews her week. She goes, okay, this week, what made me ineffective? Okay, let me review that. I'm definitely not going to do that next week so I can be effective. That's what life should be all about. Then one of my friends, Pete, in Sydney, he was studying the Bible. He studied the Bible the first time. He never really wanted to do it. It was a good thing to do, but I'm just going to live my life, take my life into my own hands. Yet he left. He got on his bike, he was riding his bike, and out of nowhere a bus hit him. And at that very moment his bike was totally crashed, smashed. Yet nothing happened to him. He got up and he goes, I think God is trying to get my attention. He went back and studied the Bible and he became a disciple. I think sometimes we go, why do people hurt me? I'm tired of being hurt by people. See, being hurt should draw you closer to God. That's all it is. When humans hurt you, it teaches you one thing: humans are unreliable. That's all it teaches you. Doesn't mean you stop loving humans. They're just unreliable. God is going, how many times do you have to be hurt before you understand that I'm the only one that you can really rely upon? And you know what's interesting? When you find yourself relying more and more on God, you actually end up loving humans more and more. How interesting is that? But when you focus on the fact that you're hurt, you become more and more unloving to humans. I think there's my wife and I were in Samoa for 7 months. There's always so much joy you find when people live in worse situations than you, worse problems than you, and their attitudes in life are much better than yours. It makes you go, wow, I'm really entitled. And there was an incredible sister who was in the church. Her name was Anna. You see, she was given up for adoption by her family to another family. Very normal in Samoa. A girl would get pregnant and gives away her baby. Sometimes to an unknown person, sometimes to an unknown person. She grew up not knowing her family. Even in the family she was adopted, the person that was her supposed sister was also adopted. You can imagine the hurt, the feelings of insecurity. Imagine that identity crisis she would have gone through. Why was I given up? Am I not good enough? Was I not worth it? But it's amazing that her and her adopted sister, so she's Anna and her adopted sister is Nika or Veronica, they both actually became Christians. But a time came, the moment of truth came, when Anna had the chance to confront and meet her physical family, her physical mom. How would you feel if you were Anna? You finally can look at the eyes of the woman that gave you up. You finally can look at the eyes of the family that gave you up. What feelings would you have? How would you wish to treat that particular family? For Anna, she understood that she was also a sinner just like her parents, just like her family. She chose forgiveness over holding on to how she felt. She forgave her biological family. But you know what was interesting? Through that, she was actually able to help her biological brother, Chris, to become a Christian. See, but if she never chose forgiveness, would Chris have become a disciple? If she never chose to focus more on God, would Chris have become a disciple? The answer is no. So being hurt is like being hurt or being bitter is quite pointless. Bitterness is like drinking poison and expecting the person that hurt you to die. Die. When you were the one dying. Bitterness is like cancer. It eats up the host. And anger is like fire. It burns it all clean. But yet when you become a disciple, it's amazing when you become a Christian. You feel like you have more problems, but yet more miracles. Have you ever felt like that? I've had more problems, but yet more miracle. And it's this concept of, it's amazing how God works in blessing. Relationships is one of the areas that people feel like they have a lot of problems in. I want to have friends, or a husband or a wife, to love, to care for. I think so much more that people today will go, I'm choosing not to get married because I'm afraid of being hurt. It's the truth thing. People will choose not to get married because they're afraid of being hurt. But the reason why there's relationship problems is actually a very simple problem. It's a very simple problem, a very simple solution. People run away from the very thing that will help their relationships. It's called putting God first. And people run away from being how they were created. And I had a great chance, me and my friend Walter were talking yesterday, but yesterday we talked. And all we talked about was a man was created to lead and a woman was created to be the nurturer and to follow. That is a radical concept in today's world. But why should it be? And I want to talk about my friend Aaron. Aaron, I love my friend Aaron. Good guy. Then when he became a Christian, he was also studying at a university called University of New South Wales in Sydney as a project manager. One semester, they gave him a class that interfered with him being able to come to church. He goes to his lecturer, sorry, I can't do this class. I have church, I'm a Christian, I need to put God first. They go, no. He appeals. They go, no. He keeps appealing, he keeps talking to them. They kept saying no, 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 no. So he got to a point, he goes, you know what? Fine. It's either going to be that I put God first or I put my university first. And the choice is quite clear. I'm going to put God first. So he defers that whole entire year. or that whole semester because he couldn't do both. Now some people will go, what a crazy idiot. How dare you do something like that? Could you imagine how his parents would have felt at that? I put you to university and you defer in a year. So you deferred the semester. But then what do you choose to do? He goes, well, now that I deferred the semester, I got so much time on my hand. Why don't I go to Hong Kong and become a missionary? So he goes to Hong Kong to join our church in Hong Kong. And you know what was interesting? It was in that very Hong Kong as a missionary that he met his wife, Fang. So I go, so that means if he never deferred, if he never went on that mission team, he never would have met Fang. They're now married. He actually let her finish after that 6 months in Hong Kong. He came back, finished his degree, graduated with a project management degree. Yeah, he met an incredible wife that became his girlfriend and then a wife. They have 2 beautiful kids now, and they're leading our church in China. See, whenever you put God first, there's always something at the other side for you. But it's that little part, it's that little bit, the scary part, that you have to get over. You know, God gave this man, a righteous man, Noah, a challenge. And it wasn't a small challenge. He goes, Noah, you and 7 others, your wife, your sons, and their wives had to build this massive boat and fill it full of animals. If I told you to build me a small boat, how would that, could you imagine that? How would you feel being given such a huge challenge? How do you feel about challenges? What excuses would you have given? Well, surely I'm not a carpenter. I've never done it before. Why ask me to do something outrageous? What if my wife and sons don't want to do it? Believe me, that you really told me to do it. So Noah had all the challenges before him. You never hear him mention in the scriptures that the challenges were too much for him. If for some of us, we're given a simple challenge, just evangelize every day. Stop it, man. That's too much. Noah obeyed. It says in verse 22, Noah did everything just as God commanded him. See, that's the type of person God is looking for. Are you going to be someone that does everything that God commands? See, God gave Noah a mission, just as he gave all men and women a mission today, to love him and love the lost. John 15:16, you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last. Then the Father will give you whatever you ask in my name. See, for you to get what you want from God, it demands you to do the obedience first part, doesn't it? It goes hand in hand. This was Noah's role too. He not only built the boat, but also preached at the same time. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 5. If he did not spare the ancient world when he had brought the flood and its ungodly people, but protected Noah, a preacher of righteousness, and 7 others. Noah was known as a preacher of righteousness. You know, how do you feel towards your calling to be a preacher of righteousness? What excuses are you giving? I am not good at speaking to strangers. No one is, but you can learn. I have never done it before. My friends and family are not doing it. No one ever does anything the first time. All it takes is for someone to stand up and to do it. You're either focused on God's plan to save the world, or you find yourself with the self-centered multitudes of the world. And when judgment comes, if you have not been busy building God's kingdom, you will not be allowed into the boat that saves you. So you gotta rise above the flood of problems. Life is full of problems. Try going a day without a problem. If you can do so, tell me how you did it. I would love to learn. Life is full of problems. And then point 2, my favorite one. You've got to rise above the floods of emotions. You've got to rise above, but your emotions, they're so hard. I just sometimes feel like I can't. I don't know how to do it. They're so deep. But when you keep telling yourself you can't, guess what? Then you can't. And Genesis 5:32 says, after Noah was 500 years old, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Genesis 7:6, Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters came on earth. So the time period from when Noah had sons and God gave him the charge to build the boat and when the floods came was a very long time. It would have taken a long time to build the ark, especially if there was only 4 men working on it. Think about that. He had only 4 men to work on the ark. Genesis 6:15. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 450 long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Actually, in the notes I'm giving you, here's a real size photo of a man that took the dimensions of the ark from the scriptures and built the ark. Noah had to build all of this. That's quite impressive, actually. And there was getting all the animals together on board. Even if God did help him, that would have been a logistical nightmare. Could you imagine the amount of times Noah would have to recut a wood because it was not cut right? He cuts this wood, puts it, man, that took me 2 months to cut just that one wood. I have to do it all over again. Or perhaps needed to remeasure something. Could you imagine him counting the animals to make sure he had all the animals? And then he miscounted. And have to start all over again. Shit's how the admin is going. Could you imagine that? That would drive me crazy. Or maybe he's counting, not knowing his son is bringing another animal from the rear side of the boat. He counts, and he goes, okay, we have 300. Sits down for dinner, son goes, oh yeah, I brought 10 more animals. How do you feel about things not going your own way? How do you feel about that? Are you stuck on thinking your way is best? The pride of human is that we spend much time stuck in our head and what we think is right than actually pray and trust in God to show us what is right. Pity the person that walks around thinking their way is the best. Pity the person that walks around so busy, seeing all the reasons why something that someone is doing or someone's way is not effective. You must have a horrible life. Because that's hard. You can't enjoy life. Because all you're doing is picking out why this person's way and that way is wrong. Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him and he will make your path straight. Are you caged by your own mind? You know what it's like to be caged by your own mind? Have you ever heard of the story where they tie a rope around a baby elephant and put it on a stick? But the rope is tied so tight at that age that the elephant can't escape. But then the elephant grows and grows and grows into a fully grown sized elephant. Yet the elephant still feels like it can't break from the rope, though it's powerful enough to destroy an entire house. And it's only simply because they have been conditioned to think that they can't escape. That is what it's like to be caged by your own mind. You are caged and you are trapped by your own thoughts. Or are you the bull that is laser focused, pumped up with so much anger and frustration that you see red, yet you don't notice that you're being cut to pieces? When you go angry, furious, sees the guy waving the nice little red thing, and he just loses his mind. And all he does is keep charging in the same direction that he keeps getting cut. And he bleeds to death. That's what it's like when you're caged, laser focused in one aspect. The way out is actually very simple. It's called a trust fall. Have you ever done a trust fall with someone? The concept of a trust fall is actually very, very simple. All it is fall back and the person will catch you. It is that simple. God is the person catching you, and you're the person that falls right into his arms. and he will always catch you. But if you decide to be the elephant and decide to be caged, if you decide to be the bull and be only laser focused, you never would do the trust fall, would you? But yeah, you end up living a very limited life. See, all this time, think about the emotional pressure Noah would have had to deal with. Doubt, self-doubt, doubt from his wife and family. Maybe 20 years into building the ark, the son goes, "Are you really sure God talked to you?" "Okay, I'm sure." 40 years into it, "Are you really, really sure?" I mean, this is a large, but "Are you really sure God?" "It's still very sunny. I don't see no rain coming." 100 years, "Dad, are you really, really sure?" Could you imagine the self-doubt? The fear? What if the boat doesn't float? And in today's world, we like to get proofs. Like, if you want to test something out, you go, "Okay, let's put out a proof. Do a dummy test." There was no dummy test for the boat. Noah had to believe that once the flood came, the boat would float. How scary is that? So if the boat didn't float, there goes Noah, done and dust, capiche. He literally had to believe first time testing will work. I mean, Noah was smarter than Einstein, smarter than the guy that made the light bulb. How many times did you think he did the light bulb? Noah did it once and got it right. That's pretty impressive. The ridicule from the extended family, his wife's parents, tiredness. We think we're tired. Could you imagine walking on a boat for 100 years? That is real tiredness. Every day, physical labor. Cut, carry, cut, carry. And I'm dealing with a jungle at the backyard of my house. It's a real jungle. It's taking me a month to cut, and it's not even the length of this. Could you imagine being Noah, having to build an entire boat? The negativity. See, if Noah had given into his emotions, him and his family would have died physically and spiritually. Because if you're not resisting the ungodly pulls of the world and the spiritual weak around you, eventually you join them and start thinking as they think. What emotions are threatening to flood your life and drown you today? Desire for self-gratification, sexual morality, the juicy bad attitude. Bad attitudes are very juicy. That's why you sit in it, isn't it? Laziness, physical and emotional laziness, discouragement, self-pity, pressures of peers, parents pleasing, people pleasing. Now, what sort of emotions are you going through? Are you going through fear? Fear is like being in a room, tied to a chair, with the tsunami heading towards you. You see the open door to walk past. But because you're tied to the chair, you can't move. The tsunami overtakes you. That's fear. What about the emotions of not being good enough? Now, what's interesting about not being good enough? Every year there is the Olympics. And you know what happens right after the Olympics? The Paralympics. This is the Olympics for the disabled people. Could you imagine being one of these people? You watch the Olympics and you watch able-bodied humans swim, run, do all kinds of activities. And after that is your own Olympics. And you're the person that doesn't have a leg or an arm, 2 legs. If you want to talk about not being good enough, could you imagine that? That feeling of not being good enough? Yeah, there's a quote. It goes, when you fail, you learn a lot about yourself and come back stronger. Life need not have limits. Having an opportunity in life is more important. It's more about what defines you, is what you do with that opportunity. This quote comes from a guy called Richard Whitehead. He was born without the lower half of both of his legs. Yet he holds the world record for athletes with a double amputation in both full and half marathons. Richard was also ran 40 marathons in 40 days with no legs. There's no such thing as not being good enough. We're only limited by us. There's another quote that goes, I'm a normal person, just a lot smaller. I go with it. Everybody should go with that. You only live once, and you need to enjoy life. To go out and achieve whatever you want. This is from a lady whose last name is Simmons. She won 2 gold medals at the 2008 Beijing Paralympics, followed by 2 more golds and a silver and a bronze in the Paralympics in London in 2012. She was born with dwarfism. She started swimming at the age of 5. And she was competing against able-bodied children by 8. She won the first Paralympics gold medal, her first gold medal at the Paralympics at the age of 13. Talk about not being good enough. We have able bodies. There's nothing wrong with us. It's all about how you think up here. Now, guys, in conclusion, Noah was a dreamer. He was given a vision by God, and he took that vision. And he saved not himself, but also his family. The ripple effects of your evangelism or lack of it will echo for eternity. The future, your future, the future of your family belongs to those who believe in the beauty and reality of God's dreams for you. I leave you a challenge today to simply rise above the floods of your problems. To simply rise above the floods of your emotions. And that is the sermon for today. Amen.